Hi everyone, hi members. I've got a very exciting announcement today, which is that we have just launched Creator Cryptic, and we launched it last night, my time, and we've already seen a bunch of submissions come in, which is pretty exciting. Prior to that, I mean, we'd been testing the software, and to test it, we'd been entering clues like this is a test with the answer test one and things like that, the kind of nonsense you write when you're testing a system. And so once we launched last night, it was just really nice to see a bunch of clues come through that did not look like that because they were real clues from real people and were pretty interesting. Some really creative ideas already appearing in there. So very excited to kind of see how this gets used, how it gets shared. Yeah, that's just super exciting. I want to show you all about it. I want to show you how it works. I want to talk about what's coming soon on it. And then I want to talk about what we're going to do, what you can expect from us as members, what you can expect us to do with your clues. So let's get into it. We've got this new card here. Before the card was kind of lower down and it said coming soon. Now it says create and share your cryptic clues, and it's got this cool icon which I think is sweet. I made this icon. It's got a gradient. You will see why it has a gradient later, but those that have worked with me in the past know that I quite like a gradient. Anyway, and the theme of the icon is more like about sending than it is about creating, because I think why create a clue if you're not going to share it? That's kind of the whole point. So let's get into it. I click on that and we're straight into the form. That will change soon. I'll talk about that later, but here we go. Let's write a clue. Why don't I write the very first Minute Cryptic clue that we did, which was very little time. It was a double definition. Now, normally you would then go and write like the layout of the answer after it. Don't do that. You don't need to do that. That's actually what that little text says down the bottom. We work that out, so you don't need to include that at all. And then you write the answer, which in this case is minute. And you can see there that we've calculated the number. Now, at the moment, we're doing maximum 4-word answers. Not many answers have more than 4 words, but also a maximum of 8 letters per word. We may extend that soon. You will have also noticed that we've changed the UI of the daily clues, and that actually allows us to have longer answers, which is great. So we may go beyond 8 letters, but you can see here that that I can't go past 8. And then as soon as you press space, it starts the next word. So there you go. That's how that works. But this answer is minute. So my hint to my solvers might be it's the name of the game. My display name, I don't have to write a display name in, but if I did, it would be Angus. And then, I mean, it can kind of be whatever you want within 14 characters, as long as you keep it sensible. And then we've got this checkbox, which is also optional, which is please use my clue, which basically says that the clue is your original creation. We might use your clue, and if you kind of copied it from someone else, if it's kind of like a forgery, essentially, not your own creative work, that might be kind of like, that wouldn't be a good thing. So you're stating that it's your original creation and that you're happy for us to use it in publications, which basically just means we could include it in the website and the app. Maybe, maybe we do a video on it. Certainly, if it was a daily clue, we would do a video on it. Maybe it goes in an email at some stage. Like, you're giving us permission to use it, basically. But you don't have to click that. You can leave that blank, and from a user experience perspective, the rest of this will operate exactly the same way. You're able to share your clue totally normally. And then if you do choose to let us use it, you can include your social media handles so that we can tag you. But again, that's optional. And so now I can just create my clue. And here's the gradient. We wanted a way to kind of distinguish the look and feel of the page from the daily clues. You'll see that in a moment. But here, like this page is kind of celebrating the fact that you've created it. Here's your clue. You can see that it did add the number 6 at the end. You didn't write that in, or I didn't write that in. That just that's automatically calculated. And then you can share it using your device's normal sharing tools as usual. But then you can also test your clue so that you can see what it looks like before you share it if you want. So let's test it. And yes, you can see here, this looks very much like the daily clue, except it's got a gradient. It is in the new style of the gradient of the daily clue, which we've had a lot of pushback on. I knew we'd have some pushback. Any new thing gets pushback, but that does not, of course, mean that the pushback is invalid. And it's certainly something that I'm reading closely, and some things I agree with, and I think we will make some changes. But there are also things that I think are good. And some of the feedback says things like, it was perfect before, you don't change it if it's not broken. And I think in a way there is something about that that's not entirely valid, where I think, no, it wasn't perfect before, and actually we've got goals in changing it. But the thing that I feel most of all about the pushback, this is becoming a video about the pushback, is just feel really grateful that people care enough to say that they liked it before and they don't like the new thing. Like it is very, it's affirming that people care. So yeah, and we're going to listen to that and probably make some changes. But anyway, this is any changes we make to the daily we'll kind of bring across to this. They should kind of mirror each other, except with the gradient. And here we've got the hints. So you can show a letter. It picks a letter randomly. And you can show a hint, which is it's the name of the game. You can go back. And there's no highlighting on the hints. We might bring that in if there's a way to make it really easy for users to use when they submit a clue. We don't want to make something so complicated that people can't use it. But anyway, and then we can type in our answer. Actually, let's expose a letter. Okay, we got the U. I think this is minute. And so as soon as you finish it, and we can go check, and we go, you got it. And it says you solved Angus's cryptic clue with one hint and one letter used. And you can brag. I've also had a bunch of feedback on this share button cycling between brag, boast, crow, share, and I've gloat, saying a lot of those words are kind of negative. Yeah, that was just a random experiment from me to see what I thought of it. I think I probably will roll it back and just keep the word as share. I liked the idea of it because, obviously in cryptic clues, we're always trying to find kind of synonyms. Not that bragging is a synonym of sharing, but like just this kind of idea of like sharing because you're proud of yourself. And I don't, maybe I don't see the negative connotations with like bragging or gloating or crowing as much as others, but I do understand it. So we probably will change that back as well. But then you can share it. You can share it back to the person that wrote it and let them know how you did. Obviously, you're experiencing this as a test of your own clue at this point, but it just gives you the same experience that the people that you share it with will have. So that is what people will experience, and then they can also click to play today's clue, where it will take. I won't click that because I've already solved today's clue, and so it will show you the answer. Anyway, so that's the experience there. I think this is cool. I think I'm really interested to see how this works. I'm really interested to see if people share this a lot more. Because it's one thing to kind of share someone else's clue and be like, hey, this was fun. Did you enjoy this? There's definitely some sharing there. And it's probably what we might call dark sharing or dark socials, which is kind of a reference to private sharing, just in a WhatsApp group or something like that. There's some insider lingo in I think it's marketing speak, maybe. But it's another thing to share your own clue. And so I think actually people that write their own clues will want to share them even more. So I'm quite interested to see how that works. Anyway, the two remaining things to talk about are what changes are we bringing and then what are we going to do with the clues. And so the main thing to talk about in what changes or updates we're bringing to this soon is that currently when you click, let's go back, when you click on this, you're taken straight to the form. And all of a sudden, hey, I just created a clue. Where did it go? It's gone. I can't find it again. Yeah, we're going to change that. You can find it. You can find it. It will be in the URLs. Like you just, so if you're not on the app, it will just be in your browser history. But also I would encourage you to click the share button and just like copy it and write it down. Yeah, that's a bit of a workaround for the short term, or share it with someone and then the URL is saved in that share. But what really should happen and what we're going to do in the next week or so is have it so that when you click this button, you're taken to a list view of your already created clues. And all the clues you've created will just appear there. You'll be able to see them, see the clue itself so that you can distinguish between those clues, and then review those clues, reshare those clues, and possibly in the future some other functionality as well. So now that we've launched this, that's the next thing that John will be working on. But if you create a clue today, that will appear in that list view. So everything that you create now is stored permanently. We're just not displaying it to you in that list view, and we will get to that next. So if you create a clue today, don't worry that it's just going to disappear forever. Create it, make a record of the URL via the share link, but then that clue will pop up when we've got our list view here. And yes, if you click on this for the first time and the list view is there and you don't have any clues that you've already created, it will just say, you haven't created any yet. Create your first one to see it here. So that's kind of the next step. And then no major plans after that. We'll just hear what you think. That's really the next step, is to kind of get feedback from the community there. And then the last thing I want to talk about is what we're going to do with these clues. And really, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to read every clue. That is a commitment that we are making to you. If you check that checkbox, we will read that clue. And particularly it's going to be Liam that's mainly going to be handling that. And some of those clues we will select as daily clues. We'll go, that's a very good clue. We think that's shareable. It's not insanely hard as well. Some clues are really good but insanely hard, and so we don't put those on the channel. We do put them in the minis sometimes. No, I wouldn't say insanely hard, but certainly there are harder clues in the minis. So we will use some clues in the dailies, but what do we do with clues that there's something interesting about them, but we think maybe we can't workshop them into a daily clue? Or what if the volume is too high? I think that's a big question for us that we really don't know. We don't know how many clue submissions we're going to get. Is it 50 a week? That's a very easy volume to handle. Is it 1,000 a week? We need a different strategy depending on the volume of clues that we get. And so for us, it's a question of how do we valuably handle clue submissions at scale? In a way that's valuable for us, sure, but also value for you as the submitters. You get value, of course, because you can play the clue, you can share it. Hopefully that's significant value. But when you submit it to us, how do we respect that submission? at scale. And particularly on that, probably the question is, how do we help the community to grow in the art and craft of cryptic clues? And so you might have seen in the latest email update that I sent a couple of days ago that one idea for that is that Liam and I are going to explore is doing a podcast, vodcast, whatever. Maybe we take the podcast and turn it into a newsletter as well. I'm not sure. Something like that, where we bring to the podcast, we each read through the submissions and we go, okay, like the submissions that we just think go straight to the daily clues. We won't talk about them because they'll live in the daily clues. But we'll bring to that podcast clues that we think, there's a learning experience here. There's something that's, maybe this is something that you can't do. It kind of breaks some rules. Or maybe there's a really nice definition here and we highlight that and we go, how cleverly the definition's hidden, even maybe though the whole clue doesn't work. Or maybe there's something about it that it's like, this is a potentially good clue, but it doesn't quite work, but there's a fix for that. How can we workshop it? And so Liam and I, it would be the podcast with the two of us, and we'll just discuss those clues. And I think that's the way that we're going to explore how to valuably handle clue submissions at scale. And so when you submit a clue, maybe the volume is so high that we could never give individual feedback on every clue, but you know that that clue could end up on the podcast, which I think is kind of cool. But also you are giving the podcast fuel to talk about what works and what doesn't. And I think Liam and I will also see, what are common themes that come up with clues that aren't quite there? We're seeing this common theme. Let's talk about that on the podcast. And so that means that these clues that are submitted at scale are fueling a podcast that feeds back into the community to help us all learn and grow in our cryptic clue creation. And, with Liam, you've got a clue writer who's incredibly experienced at crafting clues. And you've also got me, who's got some random ideas. And who knows, maybe we get some guests on the podcast. That's the idea anyway. So let me know what you think about that. But that's kind of what we're promising with the member clues. We will read them all. We will choose ones that we think work well for the daily clues. And we will take what we're seeing from ones that aren't quite there and workshop them in public and talk about what we learn about them and things that aren't quite right and things that can get better and things like that. So that's the plan there. So that's really the update. I hope that you use this Create a Cryptic tool. Really keen to see how you use it, keen to see what your feedback is, what you like, what you don't like, what you would like us to add. Very, very keen to hear from you about that. And in the meantime, happy solving and happy clue writing.